The Rachel Maddow Show on Air America Radio. It's not just for breakfast anymore.
Welcome back. 34 minutes past the hour. This is the Rachel Maddow Show here on Air America Radio. Thanks for joining us. So what do you think the odds are that we'll have our troops out of Iraq before George W. Bush leaves office? Yeah, right. What do you think the odds are that we'll have our troops out even before then, by Election Day next year, November 08? Well, what if the 08 election, what if, November 4th, 2008, essentially was a national referendum on the war and whether our troops ought to be home from that war? Joining us to put some flesh on that idea is Dylan Loewe. He's Executive Director of Ballotground.org. Dylan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What's the idea behind Ballotground.org?
Ballotground.org is going to be placing anti-war initiatives onto the ballots of 2008 battleground states. The states that we're going to be going into are Arizona, Colorado, Oregon, Michigan, and Missouri. And the idea on which this whole thing was founded is just the belief that we think the American people deserve the opportunity to express their opposition to this war, to express their frustration toward this war in a way that until now they've been unable, and also in a way that will utilize the most powerful tool we have in our arsenal, the power of the vote. So it's our plan to send a very strong anti-war mandate to the next president and the next Congress. It's our intention to increase anti-war turnout in those states, certainly with the belief that the greater the turnout, the greater the mandate. And in the interim, we intend to increase pressure on those policymakers who continue to support the Bush war policy by basically saying, look, we are literally going to turn the 2008 election into a referendum on Iraq, and we're going to go full speed until Election Day or until the troops are brought home, whichever comes first.
Now, these initiatives obviously wouldn't be binding, but they would be expressing the sense of the people of each individual state that the troops should be brought home. Is that how it would work?
That's correct. It will express what two-thirds of the people already believe, and that is that it's time to bring the troops home as quickly and safely as possible. And though they won't be binding, there are a lot of practical consequences that come with these initiatives, certainly in terms of turnout. The right has been using initiatives as a turnout process for years, and this is a left's response. And I think it is important to note that in American politics, despite not having the force of law, you can certainly have force.
Sure. But now the glitch here, the wrench in the works here, is that if we do not have U.S. troops out of Iraq by November of 2008, and I think we probably will not, certainly that's the fault of the people whose war this is, which is the White House and the Bush Republicans. But it's also an indictment of the Democratic Congress, which, Democrats campaigned for Congress in 2006 on the basis of their claims that they would end the war, and they haven't been able to pull it off. And so there's still some anti-democratic sentiment that goes along with anti-war sentiment that may, complicate the picture a little bit.
Well, look, I am certainly among those who are very disappointed with what the Democratic Congress has been able to accomplish since 2006. And really the idea of Ballotground was born out of the frustration at the impotence of Congress to do anything. But I do think that when you're sending a mandate, you ought to send it to the commander-in-chief when you're talking about military policy. And when it comes down to solving the problem with the Iraq war, I think we have to send a very strong mandate to the next president, whoever that may be. And I think that the fewer Republicans we have in the Senate obstructing the ability for the Democrats to get something done, the more likely we are going to be able to see the end of the war as soon as possible.
We did see in 2006. I mean, the 2006 elections can be explained a lot of ways, but proposals to raise the minimum wage in 6 states, in part, are credited with some of the upset victories over Republican incumbents. I mean, there were minimum wage proposals in Missouri, where Claire McCaskill ousted Jim Talent, in Ohio, where Sherrod Brown ousted Mike DeWine, in Montana, where John Tester ousted Conrad Burns. All of those places, a minimum wage ballot proposal, which again would be expected to turn out kind of the progressive and populist majority in those states, may have helped Democratic victories. And so even if Democrats aren't doing exactly the right thing on the war, turning out people who are populist and I think liberal-minded to these sort of things could push turnout in a way that would help Democrats.
I agree absolutely, and I think that the big difference between the kind of initiatives that Democrats look to as turnout vehicles and the kind that Republicans look to is that Republicans try to identify issues that are real wedge issues that exploit the worst that you'll find in Americans, like in 2004 with the anti-gay marriage amendments going on 11 states. Whereas I think, especially with issues like the minimum wage and certainly with issues like the Iraq War, despite how divided the country has been during the Bush years, this is an issue on which the country is incredibly united. More than 2/3 of the American people have said that they believe it's time to bring the troops home. 3/4 of the American people want Congress to end funding. So I think that rather than trying to move our base by dividing the country, we're just giving the American people the opportunity on Election Day to stand up and say, look, in a democracy, our opinion is not irrelevant, and we believe very strongly it's time to bring the troops home.
Dylan, how hard is it going to be to get on the ballot in these states that you're targeting? You mentioned Arizona, Colorado, Michigan, Missouri, Oregon. I know that every state has their own rules about how to get on an initiative like this on the ballot. How much of a challenge do you see here?
Well, they certainly do have their own rules, and there is a challenge to the extent that we've got to be on the ground by January in most of these states. But we put together a fantastic team. Sue Burnside is one of the best field operatives in the party, is running our national field program, and she is a real legend. She's extraordinary. We'll be on the ground at least 4 to 5 months out from any of the deadlines that the states have. We'll spend about 100 to 120 days gathering signatures. We'll have community organizers on the ground collecting anti-war volunteers to collect the signatures. And frankly, I think that given the climate in the country, it's not going to be difficult to find people in these states who are adamantly opposed to the war and are going to be excited about the opportunity to vote on Election Day against this policy.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, to be honest, the thing that's going to be tough is the issue of the practical impact, because it is. I think particularly among liberals there is this frustration, as we've talked about, with the Democratic Congress for saying they're against the war and then not doing anything to end it. Similarly, these ballot initiatives will not do anything directly to end the war because they can't be binding initiatives, obviously. But there is this great argument to be made about that you're making right here, and that underlies this whole proposal, which is that this will boost turnout, this will create pressure, this will articulate the national will about the war in a way that maybe hasn't been articulated formally enough through opinion polling. This does push in all the right directions. I just think that there's the conversation that's going to be happening on doorsteps in all of these states as you go around trying to get ballot initiative signatures here is going to be about the practical impact here, and it may turn on whether or not people are willing to be really pragmatic and instrumental in their politics rather than just frustrated, which is, I think, what most people have been about the war.
I agree, and I think that to that end, our message is going to have to be both that we believe that the American people deserve the opportunity to vote on this, and also to be very clear to those who we're talking to on doorsteps about what the practical consequences are here, and about how, despite whatever your frustration may be with the Democratic Congress, that there are specific ways that we can push to end this war that go beyond symbolism, and that if we don't do that, who knows how long we're going to be in Iraq.
Yeah. Dylan Loewe, good luck with this. Folks, particularly if you are hearing me right now from Arizona, Colorado, Michigan, Missouri, or Oregon, or if you are just interested in this idea as a practical proposal for boosting anti-war turnout, probably helping the Democrats in the process, and really articulating a message about the war, do yourself a favor and go to ballotground.org. They're going to need a bunch of help pounding the pavement, getting these things on the ballot, and you can also learn more about the ideas behind it. Ballotground.org. It's linked from our website today, MaddowOnline.com. Dylan Loewe, good luck with this. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's the Rachel Maddow Show here on Air America.